Hello, thanks for joining us today. As you know, we're here to talk about how you can set up a safer, more efficient, and modern workplace by integrating Proxyclick with your access control system. We're just going to wait a few minutes for a few more people to arrive, and then we'll get started. Okay, there are quite a few of us here now, so let's jump in with a quick introduction to your hosts. I'm Michele Martinelli, and I'm a product marketer at Proxyclick. And with me today is Andy Orwell, and he's our global access control lead. So Andy, can you tell us a bit about what you do?
Of course. Hi, everyone. So Andy Orwell, I am Global Access Control Lead, and that means that I'm involved in everything access control related at Proxyclick. So whether that's creating documentation, answering customer queries, or taking you through the full deployment process, which we'll be looking at today.
Cool, thanks Andy. And if you have a question for us during the session, just use the Q&A box and we'll do our best to answer it live. If we don't get to it, we'll be in touch after the webinar. And if you want to get in touch about an access control integration, you can reach us on support@proxyclick.com. Okay, great. Let's get started.
So this is our agenda for today. We're going to start with a quick overview of the different access control systems we integrate with. Next, we'll take a look at how Proxyclick can help make your life easier. Then Andy's going to talk us through a typical deployment. And to finish, we'll take some questions. The webinar should take just under 30 minutes. So let's get started. At Proxyclick, our approach to access control is pretty simple. We build a cutting-edge integration platform and integrate with the leading providers of access control. What that means for you and your people is consistency and impressive experiences no matter what system you use. At the moment, we integrate with the providers listed here, but that list keeps growing. In fact, I'm delighted to say we've just added Brevo, OpenPath, and Genea. We also have a huge amount of experience and knowledge in the team and provide the best help in designing and configuring the right process for each customer. Now, generally speaking, access control systems provide great security for your locations, and Proxyclick can help take this to the next level and leverage your existing infrastructure to better increase security and efficiency, reduce costs and impress your people, and implement best practice health and safety processes. Mark, who's quoted here, is a great example of each of these points. Brooklyn Navy Yard is an industrial urban site with 260 plus tenants and multiple flows. We're talking visitors, contractors, but also employees and drivers, and Proxyclick has helped them drastically cut queuing times, increase pre-registered visitors, provide a smoother flow, and in COVID-19 times, deliver a safe check-in process with minimal face-to-face interactions. And those are just some of the benefits of unifying the processes and systems you rely on to manage the flow of your people. And that's something 96% of respondents to a survey we ran with leading CRE businesses see great value in. So, security, visibility, and flexibility. How can Proxyclick make your life easier? Let's start with employees. In the past, you didn't need to worry about giving people flexible access to the workplace. The concept of working a 9 to 5 from the same location every day was pretty common. But the move towards a hybrid workplace and COVID-19 means that doesn't work anymore. And that's why Proxyclick's Prover app lets you give employees the flexibility to access the workplace when it makes sense for them. They can book the day they want to come in and save a desk. Then they receive a digital key that gives them access on the day. They can scan that key at your access control system to get in. What that means is they'll always have it in their pocket. You can revoke access if you need to, and it's just all much smoother and easier. Now, in some buildings, physical fobs and access cards are still the norm. These systems are clunky, manual, lead to crowding in the lobby, and they can be really expensive. I'm sure that if I'd kept hold of every card I'd been given when visiting offices, I'd have a nice little collection, one that cost the companies I was visiting quite a bit of money, especially as I'm not the only one who forgets to hand back fobs. To try and avoid this, I've had companies ask me to leave my ID or driver's license at the front desk. And first of all, I hate doing this. And secondly, that's a pretty clear data privacy no-no. Digital keys let you save on costs, respect privacy regulations, skip the queue in the lobby, and of course, in COVID times, no one wants to be touching the same fob as everyone else. And with a manual process, it's also a pain to know who is, was, and will be on the premises. And these days, knowing who's there, and I mean who's actually there and checked in, not who was supposed to be there but didn't show up, well, that's really important. And with a digital logbook, you get a real-time view of who's actually there and checked in across multiple locations. That's important for populating the emergency list and being able to communicate with everyone if there's an issue, but also for contact tracing, planning and reporting purposes, and for potential audits. This will make your life a lot easier and save you and your team a lot of time and frustration. Now, the complexity of checking people in increases when you're dealing with a multi-tenant setup. In many cases, legacy systems make it difficult to provide the safety and modern interface that tenants need without sacrificing efficiency. That's why integrating with Proxyclick provides a custom experience for building owners and tenants, one that gives them the flexibility to set up their own flows. This lets you provide a modern, efficient, and secure experience for tenants at minimal cost. We also have a separate team that deals exclusively with this type of environment, so don't worry if you think your setup is too complex. We're present in some of the biggest buildings in the world and offer a tailored service to make sure you get what you need. Health and safety is top of everyone's mind, and even with the vaccine being rolled out, it will remain a major concern for some time to come. So to keep your people safe, the digital QR code I mentioned before, the one that acts as a key, well, that can be granted based on answers to a health questionnaire, so that you can minimize the risk of anyone with symptoms getting on the premises. This type of screening was recently highlighted as part of OSHA's Workplace COVID Prevention Program, and it's going to continue to play an important role in workplace safety. Now, we also support a temperature scanning integration, so you can check people's temperature in the lobby, and if they have a fever, you can then not let them in. And we have strict occupancy controls on top of this to avoid having too many people on your location. This means you can ensure social distancing and avoid overcrowding. It works by letting you set a limit to the number of people allowed on site and stop anyone from making a booking when this limit is reached. And I talked about keeping track of who will, is, and will be on location. Well, having this information enables contact tracing. You have a log of who was on location in the past and who they shared the space with. If one of them tests positive for COVID-19 a few days later, for example, this lets you contact everyone that they were with and let them know there's a risk that they picked it up. And don't worry, They won't be told who tested positive. Now, without a smooth deployment process, none of these benefits would be as appealing. In fact, when I speak to companies, that's often something that comes up. People assume it's complicated, expensive, that lots of people need to get involved, and that's simply not the case. It's an extremely well-oiled process, and it's supported by documentation, 24/7 support, dedicated account managers, and a really, really experienced team. In fact, our ACS team has handled deployments across different industries, ones with really specific security needs like banking, as well as complex multi-tenant environments, all the way through to relatively straightforward single locations. So you're always in safe hands with them. And on that note, Andy, our global access control lead, is going to tell you a bit more about the deployment process.
Thanks, Michele. So I'm going to take you through the steps involved in a typical access control integration deployment. But before I talk about deployment, I wanted to cover why we use QR codes as our default access credential. It's a question that we get a lot, so I'd like to address it at the start. QR code access is our default approach as it allows for the best visitor flow. It gives the option to send access credentials to a visitor in advance, enabling them to have seamless access and a great welcome to your premises with no delays at the front desk. They offer great flexibility, and you can choose when they are emailed, either before or after a check-in process. Alternatively, you can choose not to email QR codes at all and offer visitors a printed QR badge. You also no longer have to cover the cost of RFID cards that are not returned after a meeting has ended. For this to work, QR code readers must be installed and configured following our documentation. We have some recommended QR readers and helpful setup guides available, but many QR readers are suitable, and this can be discussed with the customer success team in advance. We also have example QR codes and their associated token numbers to enable simple testing prior to the final deployment. With all of that said, it's also possible to use traditional RFID cards with Proxyclick access control if preferred. Next, let's take a look at how we support these various use cases. For visitors, we enable you to send an invite to a visitor and give them everything they need for their visit. In the invitation email, they'll have a QR code with an encoded token number for use with your access control system. We also automatically add a profile for the visitor in the access control system with the same token number, and then automate their access rights in line with their visit status to ensure they only have access when you want them to and only to the areas you apply in advance. For employees and contractors, we have our Prover app. A typical flow would involve your employees booking a space in the office via the app, then using the digital key to facilitate access to the office. In the CRE space, our access control integration fits in well and takes the features available to single locations and applies them to large multi-company locations. This even includes custom access levels that could be applied only to an individual company's visitors. Here we can see the systems we integrate with. You may be wondering how this works with Proxyclick being cloud-based. Initially, we integrated with established access control manufacturers that have systems that are traditionally installed on site. For these systems, we have a lightweight client software that needs to be installed locally to facilitate the communication between Proxyclick and the access control system. More recently, we've integrated with cloud-based systems such as Brevo, OpenPath, and Genia, where a direct connection and simpler deployment process is possible. Onto the deployment process. As you can see, it's just 6 easy steps. This starts with a conversation on your requirements and what you want to focus on: efficiency, security, COVID-19 procedures, or perhaps all three. We will ensure the setup is suitable for your environment and that we understand your needs. Proxyclick assigns a customer success manager who will ensure everything runs smoothly. They make sure your teams are trained and will also share our access control documentation. Alongside our documentation, we'll invite you to a shared workspace that enables your systems integrators to collaborate with us and share information or ask questions. Once everything is configured on site, we complete a remote setup and connect Proxyclick to your access control system. Finally, your systems integrators configure the access levels to ensure the access given to visitors is correct for each stage of their visit. After that, they can set up a test visit and perform some live testing. We remain in touch for any final questions, end user training, or adjustments that are needed. We've made the deployment process very simple, and we're confident anyone with an understanding of your access control system will have no problem getting it all up and running.
So thanks for that, Andy. I have a few questions for you now. Are you ready?
Yep, go for it.
Okay, so the first one, can you share any helpful tips on improving security and efficiency that clients have implemented? So I think we're looking for tips and tricks here. So anything you've seen that's been beneficial to clients?
Yeah, definitely. One that comes to mind is some of our clients have their access control system that also extends to their parking lot. So they've deployed QR code readers at the entrances to the parking lot as well. So that then means you can issue QR codes to visitors in advance and give them access just to the parking lot. Gives a nice welcome to visitors. It means that they can arrive, they can have a seamless entry, they can leave their car, and then they come into the building to go through their check-in process. So that's a nice addition for visitors. Another one that comes to mind as well is the automated checkout features in Proxyclick. So that means that when you've got visitors that have forgotten to check out and they're still set as checked in, you have the option to set a specified time of day or a specified amount of time after the meeting should have ended, and Proxyclick will automatically check them out. As soon as that happens, that's the trigger for us applying a different set of permissions in the access control system as well. We change them to the checked out permissions, and perhaps you'll have that set as meaning no access to the building. So you know that as soon as someone's checked out, they have no access, and you also know that Proxyclick is looking after the visitor status and making sure they're checked out, so no one has access to your building any longer. Both really helpful features.
Okay, that's some great insight. And you touched on this a bit before, and I'm sure it's a question you get quite a lot, but are QR codes safe?
Yes, they are. It is a good question though. I think it's worth reframing the question when we're thinking about QR codes, looking more at where you're allowing access to. So in the example I just gave, when we're talking about a parking lot, it's quite low security area. You only want to give access to the right people, but it's not like a super secure area. So you have the flexibility of QR codes where you can issue them in advance and someone can have access to your parking lot. If it was a different location that you're given access to, you might want your visitors to go through a security check or to complete their check-in before you give them any access to your building. So we have some customers where they'll have a bag check and an ID check prior to the check-in process. In that instance, you wouldn't issue the QR in advance. You'd perhaps email it after they've checked in. So they check in on the kiosk and then they receive a QR code, or you might not issue a QR via email at all, and perhaps it comes out on a printed badge instead. So QRs are really flexible and they can be tailored to how you want to give access to people.
Okay. And say for whatever reason you still want to use cards and fobs to grant access. Is that still possible with Proxyclick?
Yeah, totally possible. So we would still have the automated add-in of a user profile into the access control system. We would still manage their permissions. But that profile that we've created, you can simply add a card or a fob to that, and then they'll be using the physical credential rather than a QR to gain access around the building. Okay,
great. So total flexibility.
Total flexibility.
And what about visitor access permissions? How do you manage that with Proxyclick?
Okay, so again, even more flexibility. The way that we do that is that we will create access permissions in the access control system that match the Proxyclick status. So by default, a visitor will be in the expected status before they arrive, checked in once they check in, and checked out once they check out. As their status in Proxyclick changes, we automatically apply the correct permissions in the access control system. So again, going back to the examples I've given, if it was parking lot access, when they're in the expected access level and the expected status in Proxyclick, perhaps you would just give them access to the parking lot. Then once they check in, their permissions are elevated to the checked in permissions. And then you're perhaps letting them through your turnstiles, into meeting rooms, wherever they need to have access to for the duration of their visit. As soon as they're checked out, we automatically change their permissions again. And then on top of those defaults, you can use custom access levels as well. So by using a custom field in Proxyclick when you're creating the visit, we will automatically create a new set of permissions. So that could be a VIP permission or a contractor permission or something specific to a particular tenant within the building. Really, really flexible.
So the key word there is really flexibility again. So that keeps coming
up. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it can be tailored to your needs.
And last question, what if Proxyclick doesn't integrate with my access control?
Well, we have a roadmap for new systems. We're looking to add new systems all the time. So I'd say it's best to have a chat with the team, tell them what system you've got and talk about your needs so that we can get that system onto our roadmap. Another option that we have as well that a few customers are using is where they simply take one of the perhaps easier to use access control systems or more lightweight access control systems that we integrate with, and they just add that on. So they'll have their main building is controlled by their current access control system, and then they'll have a small sideline one just for visitor access. If your requirements mean that you just need visitors to be able to get through your front door and perhaps through your turnstiles, and they don't need access to the entire building, then you can just have a little sideline access control system that is just for visitor use.
Okay, great. So options for you there as well.
Yeah, lots of options.
so thanks a lot for that, Andy. Those are all the questions that we had. If you didn't have time to ask yours, just get in touch using support@proxyclick.com, or you can always use the chat in your dashboard. And yeah, that's it from us today. So have a great day and see you soon.